So I'd like to welcome Mrs. Archana Kulkarni. I hope I've pronounced that properly. She will introduce herself. Yeah, she's going to introduce herself and some very useful and helpful kind of tips and some thinking around what helps. So I will switch my video off and onto mute and over to you.
Hello, good evening, everybody. I may have met some of you in the clinic, and thank you for having me over this evening. Well, I hope to share a little bit of information, but I also hope to learn a lot from you. So the more information that I get from you, then we can try and put things together in the future. So, right, so we're just hoping to look at how we can, what are the things we look at in the clinic to try and maximize the vision, how we can manage the most sensitive issue, which is photophobia, and then supporting sight in whatever way we can to try and make the most of things. And in this day and age is to use technology. So we've seen through the COVID period how there's suddenly been a wave of technology boom and how we can try and maximize that. So Alstrom syndrome, as we all know, it's the retinal dystrophy where you have the affection of the rods and the cones. And because of that, it mainly affects the cones in the central area, as well as there is quite a large area of the peripheral retinal dystrophy that you get. And that's one of the reasons for the photophobia. There are also some unexplained reasons as to why there is such severe sensitivity to bright lights, which could be part of the genetic changes affecting the proteins, but I won't go into those details now. And these are the photoreceptor layer, photoreceptor cells, which are the rods and the cones. And it's the signaling that you get, which is affected mainly because of this being aceliopathy. But again, we won't discuss that too much now. So what can we do to try and support our sight? One is, of course, is to maximize whatever vision we have with spectacles. And so yearly optician visits are really, really important, because often there's a range of being short-sighted to long-sighted and astigmatism. So trying to improve that and maximize the vision is the most important thing we can do. And then having different tinted glasses. We'll go into the details of that. And then attending a low vision clinic where you can try different magnifiers. There are different reading magnifiers that you get. You get the round globe magnifiers as well, different reading aids, and again, using technology. So this is, I experienced this the other day while driving, and then suddenly had this glare come through, and I realized how uncomfortable it is, and actually also gave me a little bit of a headache. So photophobia, so there are different, I was reading through some papers where they've graded photophobia into just being light sensitivity or discomfort or causing severe vision loss, and also headaches. So there are other neurological conditions that can also cause the eye pain and the headaches. And it's considered that the shorter wavelengths of our vision, of the light, the visible light that we get, is what mainly causes scatter and mainly causes photophobia. But the mid wavelength also causes that. And again, this is because of the way the photoreceptors are affected and which photoreceptors are left behind that can cause this sensitivity. Now, there's a range of glasses that we get out there, and what we choose from. So we have the tinted lenses, you have polarized lenses, and then you have the photochromic, or what we call the transition lenses. So in tinted lenses that we have, you have, it's also used in other conditions which have low vision, and it seems to maximize and use the residual vision that you have by removing the glare. It seems to improve the visual function by removing the glare and helps helps to improve the orientation and mobility skills when all this residual peripheral glare is reduced. So what we're looking at is the vision, the visual light. So let me just go back, sorry. So you have, what we're doing is we're reducing the vision light transmission, and we need the glasses that will absorb the visual light and also reflecting off all the unnecessary light that is entering into the eye. The color vision is something that obviously the color vision is dramatically affected. And then we want tinted lenses that doesn't affect the color vision. And then looking at the research, it seemed to say that it usually doesn't reduce the color vision, even with an increase in the tint. Tinted glasses are also useful for reading while using electronics as compared to the polarized and the transition glasses. So there's different ways of categorizing it. So sometimes some people refer it to as the vision light transmission percentage, but what we tend to use in the clinics is we just say the percentage of tint required. So those are quite opposite. So it's important not to confuse this. So the darker the shade, you have less light that's transmitted or more light that is being absorbed and not transmitted. And then different colored shades again. There are lots of theories, but going down to the basics is that you just have to try out different tints to see what suits you. And I could probably learn a lot more from you from the way you have tried the tints, whether you've trialed them with clip-on lenses first, and then decided on what tint you wanted. So tinted lenses, so you can see here that the image on your left is the one where it's the image that you have without any tinted glasses, and the image on the right is when you have the tinted lenses in place, and then you can see that the glare is reduced, but things look a little bit darker. Okay, and we'll compare it to the Polaroid and the transition lenses. So here you can see that the tinted lenses allow you to use electronic devices comfortably because it also absorbs the blue light that you get from these, the liquid crystal display or the LCD display, making the eyes less tired as well. Now with the polarized lenses, it reduces the glare from horizontal surfaces. So for example, when you're out driving and you get a reflection off the road, or when you have a reflection off the snow or a water surface. So that reflection gets absorbed by the Polaroid lenses and just allows vertical light to come into the eye, making the images a lot more crisper. But these lenses are more useful in the daytime, and it tends to reduce your vision during the night. So it's usually not advisable to use Polaroid lenses at night. However, there are you can try them out to see which suits you and which doesn't, because this does cut out the light entering into the eye. And again, these wouldn't be that useful while using using your phone or your laptops, which have got the LCD displays on them. So here's an image where you can see the left again is just a normal view, and on the right is when you're using the Polaroid lenses, which is cutting out the glare off the road, making things a lot more crisper and brighter. Sorry, not brighter, crisper and clearer. And then here again on the left, you can see that the reflection off the road is not seen. It interferes in you seeing the road, and with the Polaroid lenses, the road is much clearer. So again, it averts a hazard there. Then you've got the photochromic lenses. So what are these? These are basically lenses that change in brightness. So they just start off as a clear lens, and they're lined with this a layer of chemicals which change to light and UV light, and then they become darker the more exposed to light they are. And then they take their time changing back into a clear lens when you're in when you're in a normal room light with no brightness. So the importance of this is that these are slow. So once you're out in the bright light and they turn into quite a dark shade, just like sunglasses. But when you then move into the room light where there's no bright sunlight, they do fade off, but it takes a while to fade off. So that transition, you need to allow for that transition time. And again, here you can see on the left, the image without the photochromic lenses, and on the right where everything is just gone dark with the photochromic lenses, but there's no, the clarity hasn't improved. So how do you choose the glasses? So do you choose between, do you take a tinted one, a polarized, or a photochromic? So the tinted ones, it gives you a good balance between darkness and your vision, and keeping your vision and not letting your vision deteriorate. But what's also important is to make sure that you can try and get a 99 to 100% protection of UVA and UVB in the shades. And also that they block out about 75 to 90% of the visible light transmission. You can also use different tints for different settings. So you may want to have a 90 to 95% tint for outdoors, and then when you come indoors have a 75% tint. But again, it varies from person to person. There's no rule as such as to what to use, and it's just a matter of trialing it out. So giving yourself some time to look into which one suits you the best. Then you have the polarized one, which reduces the reflection or the glare from flat surfaces, making things sharper. So why not use a Polaroid over the tinted? Why go for the tinted? Well, one is because the tinted gives you that balance between darkness and vision. And although the polarized lenses give you clarity and sharper images, it does make everything darker. And then the differences in very dark settings or at night, the polarized ones will give you poorer vision. And then you've got the photochromic lenses, which are basically like sunglasses, except that they're light activated. So they would change from different light settings. And the main thing to remember is the cost doesn't improve the quality of the glasses. It's just important to get the tint right. So don't try and go for something that's really expensive. So the expenses, again, would be the type of frame that you choose, the lighter frame that you have, the thinness of the glasses. But the thinner the glasses, sometimes it's more difficult to tint these or get the polarized lenses in them, the coating in them. So it's important to go for that sort of balance. So those are things that we need to look at. Additional tips, I think the wraparound tinted glasses would also avoid any sort of light coming in from the sides, which can cause a lot of discomfort as if you just suddenly get that bright flash of light from the side. So think about having a wraparound glass which blocks that out. And you can trial the tint, combining the tint with the polarized lenses and see whether that works. So that is possible, but you need to speak to the opticians and see which opticians can do that for you and whether they can trial that. Another additional thing is to wear glasses or an additional shade or a visor to cut out the extra light seeping in. And allowing time to adjust to different changes. So from the setting from a bright outdoor to when you come in, then the tinted glasses, because your photoreceptors have adapted to the bright setting, then when you come into a slightly dimmer setting, it will take time to adjust, and vice versa, because the rods also are affected as well as the cones in this retinal dystrophy. And another good tip is to try and look, when you're working indoors or when you're reading, is to try and have a light, an adjustable light, which you bring below your eye level. So it's shining onto your work surface rather than reflecting off into your eye, and also avoiding different reflective surfaces that you're working in, and any sort of peripheral sort of flashing lights or fluorescent lights. So having a diffuse background light or room light is quite useful. Now this was about glasses, and what else? How else can we help, our daily daily activities would be through assistive technology, using different devices and trying to adapt the settings accordingly. So that's quite a detailed talk, which we can probably do next time, but just to briefly go through it, you can do things like changing the color contrast. Now, I apologize that I have a bright background on my slides. Perhaps I should have switched it over to having a darker background with the words coming out in yellow or cream or white, which would have then reduced the glare. Then increasing the font, and then using different launchers. So there are different launchers on the desktop and phones and your tablet. As I've just mentioned a few, but you'd have to check which you can work with, which helps to change the background settings quite easily. So you can see that you have a white font on your black screen, which is easier to read than the other way around. And then these are different launchers which just make it easier to use your phone and to adapt the settings accordingly. So in summary, the main thing is to maximize the vision with what we have, to see the optician at least once a year, try tinted lenses and maybe perhaps combine it with polarized lenses. Attend a low vision clinic, and if you haven't done that before, you can ask the GP to refer you to the hospital ophthalmologist, who can then get you into the low vision clinic, and then trial different magnifiers, reading aids, and then make the most of technology, which I think I can learn a lot from you as well. And just a list of a few resources, and if you I'd really be interested in hearing from you, so I can know your experiences, and then I can adapt that and then look into different ways of trying to help. So please do get in touch. So I hope this has been helpful, and I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I think they're questions that come up time after time, and I know some of the links that you've put up can be used internationally too, so thank you for that. There's a few questions that have come up, but also the sharing of some ideas between people, which is helpful. So Annette says our daughter got edge filter glasses after being diagnosed with Ulstrom last year, and that has significantly improved her vision indoor, and for outdoor she now has tinted edge filter glasses. There's another question there, but unfortunately I can't quite read it. So perhaps I can get Catherine to help me, because it's not coming up on my screen properly. But meanwhile, also Palmer in Canada says one good YouTube channel is The Blind Life. Lots of videos on how to live your best blind life. And that sounds fairly positive in terms of living your best life. Can you see any of those questions, Catherine?
Let's have a look.
Thank you.
I can see one that says a certain wavelength.
Yeah. Do you have any experience with certain wavelengths for the edge filters?
Right. So I don't have any, not specifically for edge filters, but what they say is the shorter and the mid wavelength is what seems to bother, which affects what we call the S cones. And that there's the intermediate photosensitive ganglion cell layer nerves that you have. So if you get one, so someone has mentioned 540 nanometers. So that usually between about 580 to the 570 are the ones that if you can block those off, it tends to help. So if you try and look at the short and the mid wavelength filters, those help. But again, there's no definite rule. You just have, each one is different. So you have to just trial which ones suit you the best.
Perfect. That sounds like very good advice. Thank you. And thank you for sharing some of those links to resources too.
Thank you. I will like
here. And thanks for being here Saturday.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for including me.